Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PowettPlay Podcast. Me and Kieran, and joined by a returning guest again, Mr. Vernon Springer. How are you, Vernon?
Greetings from this neck of the woods. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas from my home here in Antigua and Barbuda. And also to all the cricketing fraternity, all the fans, whether you be England, India, the West Indies, Pakistan. It's been a challenging year for one and all. I know it's not going to be too happy for the folks in England by the time somewhere around they look like they're going to lose the Ashes. But hey, that's cricket. Life goes on, and we'll bounce back in 2026.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. From we just before we're going to have a bit of a Christmas special, and obviously talking about Leeward Islands cricket with West Indies, and obviously vice versa from a West Indies vantage point in terms of from a Leeward Islands perspective. So, Kai, obviously, I just want to put it onto yourself. Where do you want to start really with this episode in general?
Um, so I think the best place to start with this is obviously we've just had a recently concluded Super 50. Springs, obviously, as we said, we're going to look at it as a Christmas special from the different regions. Obviously, you're the one in terms of the Leeward Islands. What is your take on, the impact the Super 50 had or didn't have on the Leeward Islands, and what that may have on West Indies cricket from a Leeward Islands vantage point?
First up, it has always been a major discussion in terms of the Leeward Islands Hurricanes or the Leeward Islands under 15, under 17, under 19, or the women's team. It all comes down to preparation. And one would also have to ask themselves if the Leeward Islands Hurricanes had the proper preparation going into that Super 50 tournament. We don't want any excuses, but it begs to question that why would Cricket West Indies organize a regional Super 50 tournament during that period of time? And as we go along in the conversation, I also want to examine as to when we have folks who are directors, does it mean that because Vernon Springer is the director or the president for the St. Kitts or the Nevis or the BVI or St. Martin Cricket Association, does it mean that he's the best person to be a director on the Leeward Islands Cricket Board? Because I say that where how could directors for the Leeward Islands Cricket Board sit down and plan a tournament almost like 7 days in 8 days or 8 days in 9 days and spend over $300,000 at a point in time when Cricket West Indies is calling out and saying that they don't have any money, and the CEO has been indicating that people have to make the adjustment. During that period of time, there's no youth tournament. We have not a youth tournament for years now, almost like 6, 7, 8 years. And when I say youth tournament, I'm talking about a under 17, under 19 tournament. So you weigh up that and you begin to ask yourself some serious questions. That money that was spent on that tournament, was it worth it? Could we have maybe saved that money for a women's tournament, a youth tournament, and concentrate on the Leeward's best 30 cricketers in an actual camp where we would be preparing to go to the Super 50? Because you already would have had 15 contracted Leeward Island Hurricane cricketers. And I think it was pretty much unfair that a squad was picked. Your MVP of your cool and smooth T20 tournament, Dimitri Adams, was easily one of the best fieldsmen in the Leeward Islands, was not selected in your final Super 50 squad. Then you had a precursor of the tournament where Hayden Walsh went to represent Montserrat and perform creditably. But he was not selected because of comments that he would have made maybe earlier in the year. So you're looking at two different scenarios here, and you're asking yourself if this was the best team. You also, at a point in time, Karen, Kadeem Henry made his first-class debut for the Leeward Islands in first-class cricket. And during that season, he scored his maiden first-class 100. Now, if we know the skills of that young man, he can bowl off spin, he can bowl leg spin, but he's not selected in your final squad. Then you have a young guy like Kelvin Pittman, who was in the academy setup, who has just come on in leaps and bounds and was the MVP of your last series that the academy would have played in the Caribbean. So I weigh those four options and quietly look also at the Rakeem Cornwall's situation in terms of how did that impact or affect the Leeward Islands Hurricanes performance in the Super 50, barring the weather. So a serious conversation needs to take place with Rakeem Cornwall. I'm going to say it on your program. All of the parties need to sit down and we need to say to Rakeem Cornwall, listen here, boss man, we're going to give you 6-8 months off to sort yourself out because we want you on the park. Be it for the Falcons, be it for the Leeward Islands Hurricane, or be it for Antigua or whoever. But you now need to be able to go and sort yourself out. And if we were examining the performance of Cornwall in the last 18 months, we would have seen that even though he would have got wickets, he was struggling in terms of his batting. So you sometimes have to hit the nail on the head, and you sometimes also have to have honest conversations with players. And I think that's one of the things which we're really not having. We're not sitting down and having serious, honest conversations. And we need to have honest conversations with our cricketers. If you want to move on from Jamal Hamilton, then you need to have a replacement or you need to have a conversation with Jamal Hamilton. If you want to move on from whoever, I'm just saying just have a serious conversation. It now leaves me now where there was some new blood drafted into the whole fold. You had a new captain, you had a new vice captain, so you had Callum Boyne Tuckett, who's had a good run with the academy now, coming into the fold of the Leeward Islands for the first time. So that's a whole new dispensation, new order. And then you also have the pressure now, where automatically it's every coach dream to win a championship. And you have been around, Karen. You were there from Winston Benjamin, you name it, almost all of the coaches, and everybody's dream is to be able to win that. But the only thing we can do is dream. If we don't prepare properly, then I don't think that we could really just get up and just go and say that we can win the tournament. And I think we have to start to look at some assessments in terms of going forward. How do we go forward? How do we prepare properly? How do we select our franchise team? Is it worth it spending over $300,000 just to say that we want to have a tournament? Or is it maybe ideal for us to be able to look at the proper system and say, listen, let's pick 40 of the best Leeward Island cricketers and have a series among them, whatever we want to call it, franchise, whatever we want to call it, but set it up in such a way that we could be able to say, we're looking at the best 40 or the best 60, whatever you want to figure it out at. Because any one of us, Kieran, we can, based on the amount of cricket that is being played in the Leeward Islands, be it Antigua, be it St. Kitts, be it Nevis, we can find the best 40 cricketers. We don't have to go to that. And if they are more than, if they have another 40 that is better than that, well, boy, I would love to see that. But at this moment, I don't see that. So I'm saying systems got to be put in place in terms of where we're going from there. And we have to stop talking about development, but make sure that we have development plans in the islands. Because if we don't have proper development plans for women's cricket, for youth cricket, and for club cricket, we're going to struggle like how we struggle this year.
You touched on some important points that I want to circle back to. Obviously, I feel the Rakeem Cornwall and Jamal Hamilton situation is one that I've been personally paying quite close attention to, because you look at a Jamal Hamilton, for example, you've got a Callum Bowen Tuckett and a Joel Andrew in the Leeward Islands team now, and I don't think it's a situation where when you have a Justin Graves and a Casey Carty coming back into your team for 4-day cricket, I don't think it's a situation where you can carry all three because, as I said, you've got Justin Graves, Casey Carty coming back in. The captain was Kareem Agor. You've got Mikhail Louis and Kadeem Henry. So as you could see, it's quite a packed order there in itself. Raheem Cornwall, as you stated as well, you'd like to see him sort of improve his fitness for the long term. What do the Leewards do? Because, I mean, you look at it as well. I think it's some 6 Leeward Islands players have been selected in the West Indies under-19 team. So that in itself tells me that knowing how the Leewards operates, when favorable, these guys will sort of come straight into the team as well. So how do they make this transition and still have enough experience in the team, but make a smooth transition?
Well, it's an important point that you asked, Kieran, because by all reports going into the new season, it looks like it's only going to be one round of cricket, which means that if it is only going to be one round of cricket, you have to examine your talent base and what you have available. And by the way, let me say congratulations to all 6 youngsters. We got 6 players from the Leeward Islands, 5 from Barbados. That begs to question the standard of our under-19 cricket, because originally Leewards didn't have so many players. It was because of the media really raising some questions as to if we followed what happened with the Cricket West Indies under-19 tournament in St. Kitts and Nevis, where you had 2 US teams. One of the US teams got to the USA team got to the final where they were beaten by Barbados. But clinically, when you listen to the reports and when you saw what you saw on the video across the region, it means that we also have to begin seriously to address our concerns with what's happening with youth cricket in the respective territories. And I remember the first series when I was doing commentary, and I asked, why would Barbados have 8 picks? I have nothing against anybody. If they are good, it's okay. But at the original squad that was picked, Barbados had 8 selectees in the team. And some of the players that I saw, I beg to question at that point in time, like, hey, did we not have anybody else out there? Common sense prevailed. We all know what happened. The unfortunate situation about this, Kieran, was that in the last under-19 tournament, Joel Anjo could have played for the Leeward Islands. But for whatever particular reason, somebody has had another game plan or another preparedness for him. He wasn't allowed to play for the Leeward Islands during that tournament. So he will walk away from a Cricket West Indies under-19 tournament where he didn't dominate, but he's dominated outside of the Cricket West Indies tournament because he's dominated for the West Indies in the World Cup and he's going back to the World Cup. Sad to say, he's not in a leadership role either going to this World Cup. Joshua Dawn is the captain and Van Long is the vice captain. So I don't think many teams who are going to the World Cup next year have an international player with the pedigree of Joel Anjo and the expectation and what this young man has done so far. So to not have him in a leadership role is going to be another question. Is it good? Yes, I feel that it is good because I think that he will be able to just go there and be himself. I think he just needs to go back into a system where he can begin to enjoy his cricket. Is he going to be the wicketkeeper on this tour? That's another conversation because I see that a Shama Apple, who maybe in Guyana terms looks like is the next talent, was brought in after a series and he was drafted straight into the final West Indies team. So there's an interesting conversation, Kieran, taking place in terms of what's happening. But I go back to the point where let's look at an Anaji Amri. Remember at one point in time, the Leeward Islands, the last time, we had 5 selectees when the World Cup was in the Caribbean. So you had Colin Boyne, Tuck and Jaden Carmichael, Onaji Amri. Onaji Amri had a development contract. Damari Bento had a development contract. Cameron Pennyfeather also got a stint. So you had a number of players who had development contracts. But during those times where those players had the development contract, they never got an opportunity. So in a shortened tournament now, where you're going to maybe just have one round, I could see the Leeward Islands selection panel saying, boy, we're going to play our best team because we want to win. Rather than indicating and deciding that, boy, we are going to develop Onaji Amri. Now we have somebody like an Onaji Amri who really should have been understudying Rakeem Cornwall and could maybe come into the 2026 season where he could be just thrown into the deep end without having any cricket at all. And we have had a number of cricketers who would have represented the West Indies under 19 who really didn't get a long run. Kieran Pemberton on the young fast bowlers, he's just gone off of the boil. He's not in the conversation anymore. You had Javier Spencer, who is still finding his work to be able to be consistent in the West Indies team. And you can go way back, even to a Nelson Boland who would have played. So it depends on what the focus is going to be. Are the Leewards going to bite the bullet and say to Jamal Hamilton, based on your performance in the 4-day competition, because remember, he scored over 500 runs, so you can't just discard him just like that. So you have to look at it.
They can do that. That's what they do.
Well,
they have done.
Well, yeah, let me don't say that they can't just discard him, but I'm saying he's made a case for himself. The question is, are the West Indian selectors looking at a Jamal Hamilton? Because if we follow through, I still feel easily he's the best glove man in the Caribbean, barring none. If you're not picking him, then Callum Bowen-Tuckett has demonstrated that he's ready. So if you're going that way, if you're deciding to invest in the future, then Callum Bowen-Tuckett is in the conversation because he's proved during his tenure with the academy that he's ready to go. Now, there's some slight changes, Kieran, and I would have made this call already before. In order for Leeward Islands cricket to develop, we're going to have to find a window for these 6 players who are in the West Indies under 19 team, the Matthew Millers, the Tanis Francis, and the Israel Morton. So Leeward is going to need a West Indies A team that can be able to tour Bermuda or can go to Barbados or can go to United States of America, so that these young players that we're talking about can develop, so that when a void is available, where you have your test players like Graves and Cartier and whoever company move on, these guys can slip in one time and they're ready to go. Outside of that, Kieran, I think the Leewards are going to go for looking to win. The batting is all right, Kieran, but the Leewards bowling, without somebody like Alzari Joseph, because I think Alzari might be in the Pakistan Super League. Maybe there are a couple of options, so they might not have Alzari. Like I said, I would make sure that Rakeem Cornwall gets sorted out. And if we saw what happened in the Super 50, our bowling wasn't all that best. So I think we're going to struggle, and it's going to be a headache for some people. But left to me, I think we just need to start rebuilding.
I sort of have the same sentiment. I think that, for a long while we were sort of on the cusp, but once you get past a certain threshold and you start making certain moves, then you sort of have to rebuild the whole thing. But I want to touch on a different aspect now, Springs, in terms of, you'd have mentioned the Alzari Joseph, the Justin Graves, the Casey Carty. These 3 guys, obviously, Justin in terms of being a Bayesian, but represents the Leeward Islands, and their performances at the international level in the past year. How would you say that bodes for, I guess, obviously West Indies cricket going forward, but more directly Leeward Islands cricket in terms of cultivating this new era of players and nurturing them into the system and understanding what first class and professional cricket is like?
Well, when we look, Kieran, at the Leeward Islands Hurricanes team and at the professional setup, I think the amount of players that would have passed through the Leeward Islands Hurricanes is a blessing based on how the system was designed. The system was designed to give players an opportunity to move around the territories. And Justin Graves was ignored by Barbados. It's just wonderful now that everybody wants to celebrate. But one thing I can say to you for sure is that Justin Graves has never gave up Leeward Islands. He's always thanked the Leeward Islands Cricket Board. He's become part of us. It sort of reminds me, Kieran, of Carlos Brathwaite, captain of the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots. I think it is one of the first players from Barbados that came to this neck of the woods and put up his hand and said, thank you, and he took the team on his back. That's the same thing I can say outside of you and the other senior players for the Leeward Island team that Justin Graves would have done for the Leeward Islands. And I think whenever he writes his chapter of cricket, there'll be a chapter on Leeward Islands giving him that opportunity, because the first time I remember seeing Justin Graves, I think he scored 50 against us on debut at the Survivor Stadium against the Leeward Islands in a Super 50. And then he went off of the ball because, Barbados had this amount of players that came back home, and he was almost struggling to get into a team. So Leeward Island Hurricane would have really helped him. But I wanted to make this point, Kieran, to show you the importance of how many players would have passed through Leeward Islands Hurricanes. You'd have had a Justin Graves, and we're talking who would have come through at a system. So let's look at Justin Graves. We had for Canada, Nidish Kumar, when he came. And almost everybody that Leeward Islands brought made an impact.
Played cricket after that as well.
Yes, right. Ashmin Ned from Guyana, you remember he came out of the under-19 setup, came to the Leeward Islands, performed creditably. It was unfortunate that he, and I will have to say politics, because when he came and he played in the Super 50, he bowled well. And then lo and behold, when the contract period came up, you were there, Kieran, trying to console that young man. He cried so much in the process. Then from Jamaica, you would have had Odeem Brown and Kuma Bonner. A lot of people don't remember Marlon Samuels was a very heavy contributor to Leeward Islands Hurricanes cricket. Damian Jacobs again was another person who came and fell into the fold, really performed creditably during that time. Sheldon Cotwell, a lot of people still don't even remember Sheldon Cotwell played for us also as well. You go to Trinidad and Tobago, Akil Hussain, Amir Django, Darren Krishnan, Javon Seals, Kevin Cooper. And at one point in time, there was a situation where you were talking the other day, we had Puran, who was almost very, very close, because there were some problems in Trinidad and Tobago where they weren't interested in picking Puran, and Stuart Williams was the coach at that point in time. So we all know that. But I was just listing. Dominica, we had Marvin Matthew. So you had a number of players from outside of the region who really came and benefited and really showed up. So when you look at the players, Jamaica, you would have had 4, Trinidad and Tobago, 3, Guyana, 1, and all these either would have been in the Super 50 or the 4-day competition. And like we said, Kieran, most of these players who came always made a contribution, even though you had a lot of people who were saying, well, why they bring in Kieran Powell? But at a point in time, sometimes when we brought a number of these players, I mean, look at Devon Thomas. Devon Thomas scored 2 first-class hundreds for the Jamaica Scorpions. A lot of people were like, it was a good transition for Devon Thomas, because moving from a Leeward Island setup and going to a Jamaica setup, it was a whole new denomination. And so when you look at the players who were at the point in time, based on how it was designed, I would say that the Leeward's program, based on the players who would have come to play for the Leeward Islands during that period of time, would have benefited in some way, and it would have also helped Leeward Islands cricket at a point in time. Now, you know that out of the territories in terms of players scoring 100, we weren't as consistent as we should have been. I'm talking about batsmen from the Leeward Islands, barring the Nitish Kumar and the Justin Graves and the Mikhail Louis and the Rakim and so who would have scored hundreds. we weren't consistent in our batsmen scoring hundreds. Yeah, you had the Akeem Saunders who would have scored 100. You had the Sherwin Peters, Orlando Peters. You had those there. But there was always a major concern when it comes in terms of the Leeward Islands team, the consistency of the batting. You know, would have had a month, Nugent, so would have performed. But somewhere along the line, guys either would have been away on West Indies duty or something, so you'll be able to have to fill up that void. So, in a nutshell, when you look at it, Kieran, I think it all boils down to how do we prepare our players from the club level? Our players playing enough club cricket properly? If you don't get into a Leeward Island Hurricane franchise contract player, is there room around the Leeward Islands outside of Antigua where you can consistently go and say you can play some competitive cricket that will keep you sharp and be ready? Those are questions that I think we have to ask ourselves.
A next angle I want to take, Springs, is obviously you look at now sort of the coaching setup. Steve Leeward, I think this is at the end of the 40th season. This will be his second season completed. Took over from Stuart Williams, who stepped down, who for the most part wasn't able to get across the line, but was always in contention, you know, put the team at a certain standard. Steve, for whatever reasons, I don't think it's necessarily through any fault of his own, probably the hand he's being dealt, is not able to get things, I guess, in a way where he would probably prefer in terms of maybe a coaching setup, facilities, structures, whatever the case is. How far or how long of a rope does Steve have, and how much is there a correlation between, I guess, the coaching setup and the administration in terms of the positioning of Leeward Islands on the regional table right now?
The onus is on the players. You can have the best coach, Kieran, and still lose the championship. And sport is as dread as that. You can have the most money and you can buy the best players. If the players don't buy, put their hand up and decide that, boy, I want this, then you're going to have a problem. The coach is got a plan. Yeah, he knows what he wants. But also, there must be teamwork taking place. We must be able to make sure that we have the facilities available. We must be also be in a position where we have the personnel available. I think in a Hurricane franchise setup or in a professional setup, you need more than just your head coach and your assistant coach. You maybe need a list of coaches, and the coaches don't have to be full-time. I think what Leeward's or most of the franchise coaches around the region need, Kieran, is technical coaches or technical teachers. You need to be able to have somebody who understands batting to come in and work with a young Joel Andrew or a young Tyrone Williams or a young Callum Boyne Tuckett. Notice what I said, who understands batting, where you could be doing something and somebody just specifically come in and identify your weakness. Same thing for the bowlers. I think when you look, and I want to use this example, when you look at somebody like O'Shane Thomas, certainly you must need a track and field coach, because O'Shane at this point in time has no rhythm. And so you need a technical coach who is going to be able to, and a track coach who is going to be able to work on O'Shane's stride pattern rather than stopping. I mean, O'Shane has been around now for a long period of time, and it's almost like there's no improvement. Like you see him bowl fast for 2-3 overs, and then he's gone off the boil. That is O'Shane's problem. O'Shane has to work on his fitness for him to stay. In fact, he's not even in the conversation now for West Indies cricket. So O'Shane himself has to start to look at his career and figure out, boy, they're not even calling me for the T20, for the 50 over, but I have a contract with the Leeward Islands. I have to kind of begin to sort myself out. Do I hire Kieran Powell as my trainer? And do I get some assistance by, getting somebody to work with me technically so that I can get better? So I'm saying we need technical coaches throughout. If you look at most of our young players, they've got good skill. but it's also the mindset. How are they preparing themselves mentally? Are they just comfortable to say, oh, I got a contract and I'm going to make some money doing this Super 50. I have a contract for a year. And if I do well and I get to the average and I have another contract, are they thinking beyond just the contract? Because you have to think beyond the contract. You were there, Kieran. You know what it's like to be a professional player. You've passed on some of your knowledge to some of the younger players. Do we have those senior players around who will be able to help in those players? The other thing is, if we have a video analyst at the West Indies level, the time has come where maybe we need video analysts also at the franchise level. We also maybe need a sports psychologist at the franchise level, because you can't wait until when you make a West Indies team to walk into a Darren Sammy setup and you have all this information bombarded in front of you, and then you have to go to this psychologist session, and then you have to go to this video analyst session, and then you have to go to a nutritionist. I think all that should be part of the framework of the franchises. And that's why I've been saying that we have to make an independent re-evaluation of the franchise system. Kieran, I don't know if that is going to be possible based on what I'm hearing in terms of finance going forward, because we're certainly hearing now that there are not going to be any more 18 tours. The combined campuses and colleges is not going to be in this 4-day competition this year. The academy is not going to be in this competition. So where does this leave us for development going forward?
I mean, the lack of 18 tours is obviously a huge setback if everyone keeps stating that the quality of the regional season is not going to get you prepared for international cricket. But I think something as well that's just come across sort of my ears is the fact that the breakout league seems to have been cancelled. Something that just was inceptionalized last year and now gone. What do you think about that? I mean, if you're going to spend so much money in terms of creating a whole new program last year, which I wasn't necessarily in favor of, because after the tournament, there was no sort of direct pathway for your performers in that to be developed and pushed and nurtured into West Indies cricket. But what are your thoughts on that sort of things going on a whim, like there's no structure in that sense?
Well, it's not really quite gone yet, Karen, because coming out of, for CPL wants the tournament. And there's a reason why the breakout league was decided. I think it's just the logistics now. So it sounds like it might be gone, but I will say to you, and I'm only just talking from where I sit. There's a lot of information I can't share with you, but I know your intel is as high as possible. There's a tournament that should take place and has to take place based on going forward for the new CPL season. Because as you rightly know, there could be another 2 teams drafted into the 2026 Caribbean Premier League. One is more moving, that you're going to be able to have a Jamaica back into the fold, and then the other one would be sort of more or less the starter. But those news will come over the next period of a couple of days. But we have, if in the event, Karen, that we can't manage to have a West Indies A-team touring, here's what I suggest, Kyra. Here's what I recommend. That we find coaches in the diaspora, be it people like John Maynard in England, who have helped young persons to come to England and play, Robert Joseph. I think there's a coach in Australia when it comes in terms of women's cricket, Shanisha Brittany Hector, got a stint out there before she went back for another stint to Cricket West Indies. I think we need to be able to identify folks or have conversations with various boards, be it in New Zealand, be it in Australia, be it in South Africa, where we identify talent and give them an opportunity to go there to learn their craft. If we go way back, if we follow by history, so Vivian Isaac Alexander Richards and Dr. Sir Andy Roberts, Dr. Sir Vivian Richards also had a stint where they went to Alfgova in England. We maybe need to look at creative ways, Kieran, of getting our players out. I remember somebody like a Shane Jeffers, who had a stint at MC. Making the point, I was making a point about establishing and finding a window to help our players. I was talking about Shane Jeffers, who had a stint in England. I could also remember Kenneth Benjamin. And while I'm here, let me just extend my condolences to Kenneth on the loss of his mother over the past week. So we here on panel, wish Kenneth and his family all the best during the condolences at this period of time. I remember Kenneth Benjamin and Carl Hooper, who were the MVP, who were the batsman with the most runs and the bowler with the most wickets in the under-19 tournament in the Caribbean. I think he was sponsored by Northern Telecom at that time, getting scholarships to go to Australia. So it's areas which I think that we can be able to improve on as to how we could be able to help our players going forward if we don't find the money for 18 tours. But if we are serious about advancing the cricket, we're going to have to bite the bullet. We're going to have to cut some costs somewhere. Either we're going to have to cut staff, either we're going to have to cut the backroom staff, either we're going to have to maybe just have directors maybe just meet via Zoom. We got to do something realistically and concentrate on making sure that the establishment of the academy remains, that we have 18 tours, that we have an 18 tour of women's cricket, not that we just have 20 women cricketers. We also need to start to set up a system, serious system, to help to get coaches and teachers to help with the women's game in the Caribbean. We're paying lip service to women's cricket. And let me make this point, Kieran. Having a tournament is not development. We keep trying to feel that because we have a women's under-19 tournament, and because we have a under-15 tournament, and because we have this tournament, that it is development. Development is when you get some of your finest teachers and you move them around and you train your coaches. You train your coaches. You asked me earlier, Kieran, about Steve Leibert and his tenure for coaching. Are we improving our coaching stock in the Leeward Islands? Outside of Stuart Williams in Nevis. Who's the level 3 coach in Nevis? Is there a level 3 coach in St. Kitts? Is there a level 3 coach in St. Martin? Is there a level 3 coach in Montserrat? Is there, how many level 3 coaches they have in Antigua and Barbuda? You have somebody like a Dave Joseph, a Terry Adams, a Percy Daniel. All these guys are still on level 2. So when are they going to move up? Because if Leeward Islands advertise for a coaching job next year, God forbid, those players who are coaching now at the junior level, they won't be in a position to apply because they don't have a level 3. And the level 3 is one of the requirements. So we seriously need to be able to address that concern. And I'm only just not talking just about Leewards. I'm talking about across the entire region. We have to be able to know, yes, even if Kieran gets a level 3 tomorrow, do we want Kieran as a technical level 3 coach where he deals with batting and he deals with fielding? I think that's the area that we need to be able to concentrate on. We also need to figure out that because we have somebody who is coaching boys, don't mean that they can coach women. So we have to be able to now identify some more women coaches, and we have to be able to find some teachers that can help the women's game.
I think I'm a big supporter of players going and playing in England, for example, especially the younger players, because it gives you pretty much exposure to all the different skills and attributes that you'll need as a player, whether it be early season ball swinging, seaming, mid-season flatter pitches, end of the season ball starts spinning, etc. But from what I can remember is I don't know if it's banned, but I know it's very much frowned upon, especially in the last few years, for contracted players, for example, to go and play club cricket in England. It seems to be as though it's a situation where it's looked upon as players earning twice because you're contracted and then getting a club contract, where in my opinion, it should be looked upon as players continuing to enhance skills, learning to become professionals, being the person that the team is depending on every week to be successful, whether it is with bat or with ball or both, and living away from home, becoming responsible. What's your take on that? Because I know you mentioned guys potentially going overseas, but I don't think it's necessarily allowed anymore.
Well, if it is not allowed anymore, then that's a backward step, because what systems do we have in the Caribbean that will improve those franchise cricketers? I know that it was a big major talking point in Barbados this year, because a number of guys who were contracted went off to England to be able to try to hone their skills. I mean, even in this present setup, Kieran, where these young players, you had Matthew Miller, who had a stint in England, young Matthew Miller. There's an exchange program with Keith Williams and the Ministry of Sports in Antigua and Barbuda, where Keith Williams brings down some scouts and they identify talent out of Antigua and Barbuda, be it male or female, and the young players get an opportunity. Tanis Francis was also a product of that, going to England. So that's why I was talking about Cairo. That is something which I feel need to be established in St. Kitts and Nevis as well, St. Martin and well, Montserrat. You have a lot of those guys, you know, and Anguilla. You got somebody like a Jadel Richardson, a number of those guys, they play cricket in England. Do we pay attention to their performances when they go to England? Because I think you have to weigh up all of the options based. If you don't have quality Leeward Islands tournament, you have to find out, okay, Kieran is playing in Australia. How many runs did he score? And there was a long time ago, Kieran, and when I was around the Leeward Islands setup, where we used to encourage players who go overseas to send back their stats to the Leeward Islands Cricket Board. So if you were in South Africa playing, or you were in Australia or England, you were always obliged that your club would send back a record in terms of your performance. Kadeem Henry, through Robert Joseph, played a couple of seasons in England. That would have helped him tremendously, a whole lot. So it doesn't matter where you're from. Whenever you look around, just imagine you get an opportunity to have a 6 months in England. I remember talking to Matthew Miller after he came back from England. And I said, Matthew, how was England? He said, boy, Mr. Springer, boy, I struggle. And I used to, Keith Williams used to send me some reports all the time. And says, boy, you know, the players were like struggling. But it's a learning experience. Massively. Because when you do get an opportunity to get a hang of England, trust me, it is one of the most wonderful places. And you know, Kieran, I've always told young people, if you want to learn cricket, you have to go to England. It doesn't matter what cricket. It could be minor county, it could be club cricket. Just go to England. It's a whole different ball game. It's a whole new exercise. And Antigua and Barbuda so far has benefited from that program. Michael Graves, he was just out in England last season. Another young, promising player coming up in the woods. Dimitri Adams, he had also a stint in England. He had lived in the US. So when you look at the program, you know that it could be enhanced on. What I think we now need, Kieran, is personnel. Let me make the point again, Kieran. Robert Joseph is home right now. He's home on holiday. I am still trying through all my avenues to get somebody like a John Maynard to come back to St. Kitts and Nevis or to the Leewards, because I feel that John Maynard can help some of our bowlers. I feel that Robert Joseph has something to contribute to Leeward Islands cricket, to West Indies cricket. These guys have been tried, tested, they've been out there. Why are we not using them? It bemuses me. I can't fathom it. I can't get it worked out.
I mean, was it 2 years ago? I think I had done sort of a scholarship program where I'd gotten Stuart Williams' son and Carice Farrell from Nevis as well, to go to school in England. So, I mean, there are people trying, there are people trying. I tried, obviously, before Michael Louis got into the Leeward Islands team and obviously into the West Indies team. I don't know if people know, but he's actually quite a clever guy as well in terms of education-wise, So I was speaking to a few universities about him as well. So, I mean, as you said, like it needs to be a situation where there's a group of players identified and conversations are had, because I know personally, first-hand experience, going to school in England, what that did for me as a cricketer, as a person, just your development as a human being. Obviously having to live on your own at a young age and be advanced in your thinking and how you go about your life, but then you have to perform as well, being on a scholarship. That will sort of drive a lot of our talent as well, because there's no doubt in my mind that there's probably even more talent now than ever. But, back in my days, there was under 13s, under 15s, under 19s. You had club cricket. You had giant malt, as you would know, in St. Kitts and Nevis. So many other avenues that these guys don't have now. So there needs to be sort of something else to take the place of that and allow these guys to play enough cricket where they can get to a higher standard without sacrificing their careers, and think that they get to a certain age and there's no avenue for them, so they go and look for other gainful employment.
So that's why the conversation needs to take place, Kieran, and I'm talking about now in the OECS. I'm putting on my OECS hat. There needs to be an OECS sports ministers meeting with all of the associations. The Leeward Islands Cricket Board, you name it, the Windies Islands Cricket Board, there has to be a conversation. Out of that conversation, Kieran, there has to be a pathway plan for women's cricket and primary school cricket. Let's factor it back. There's no primary school cricket played in Anguilla. You can't have the next Omari Banks and the next Jamal Hamilton and the next Dimitri Adams if you don't have primary school cricket played. This is Anguilla. And so I am calling on the authorities, the Minister of Sports, who himself was a former coach, played county cricket, Cardigan Connor. That has to be a must for 2026. Even if it's only 2 schools playing primary school cricket, there has to be. You can't have football being played, but there's no primary school cricket. Nevis, I want to applaud the Nevis Sports Division, because they've continued year after year to have the TDC Wanaka Mountain primary school cricket competition, so much that it has gone to a next level. And you feel very pleased when you see Curtis Mountain getting and sending out the information of that league taking place. St. Kitts, they tried a bit of primary school cricket, but I think they need to go back to the hardball setup, because originally when you would have had Noel Gishard and the late Clem Hicks and Edgar Gilbert and those coaches, that was a revelation of having primary school cricket. And then so that's where, as you rightly said, Kieran, you had the high school and college school cricket tournament that came up between St. Kitts and Nevis. We know the history behind that. I don't think there's no primary school cricket in St. Martin. If it is at a softball level. So that's a system we need to examine. Montserrat, is a small place, population-wise, but I'm sure they maybe have something in place. So Antigua, that's a major talking point. Organized primary school cricket competition. The way how the system works in Antigua is that it's almost like when you get to secondary school is when you almost start playing hardball cricket. So that system now needs to change, where we be able to have a pilot program established at the primary school level, not the softball, but the boys and girls are introduced into hardball cricket, because that is what is going to happen. You just design something properly for that. So we got to fix the base first. And when we have a conversation with the sports ministers, then we can be able to know that when the budgets come around, that funds are being allocated to youth development cricket I personally feel, Kieran, that the Ministry of Sports, in a way of giving back to Leewards and Windwards cricket, if you realize Windwards have a very organized tournament. They have under-19 tournament, they have under-15 tournament, they have Windwards tournament. We can do the same thing in the Leewards because it's not everybody, not every territory is playing cricket. So if there are only 3-4 territories cricket that have youth cricketers, then you have a tournament among those territories. But the conversation what I'm having is, let the Ministry of Sports contribute towards youth development because they're the ones who are responsible. They're the ones that pay the coaches in the Ministry of Sports, from the Ministry of Education. Set up a program. Have that conversation. Say to the government, listen, make sure you put 200,000 aside for youth tournament. This is going to be our calendar from 2026 to 2029. We want to have an under-15 tournament. We want to have an under-19 tournament. And we want to have a girls under-19 tournament at the youth level. Put systems in place. If you only have 20 girls, then you bring them together and you have a tournament. So I'm saying we got to do innovative ways, Kieran. We got to stop talking that we don't have any money, but we need to have a conversation and we need to have follow-up. Now, when you have that conversation, Kieran, there's a memorandum of understanding that was signed with the Bermuda Cricket Board. You have Canada. You have the United States of America. You have other territories around. You sign memorandum of understanding with those boards so that you can be able to get players. Like, for reference, Bermuda. Why can't we have 5-6 guys playing club cricket in Bermuda? Why can't we have 3-4 guys coming to Nevis or to St. Kitts or to Antigua from Bermuda playing club cricket on an organized level? Kieran, I can talk all day about this because I know it's something which happened before and can happen if we get the right personnel and people are willing to put in the work and have the conversation. We are seeming to just sit down, Kieran, and think that somebody is just going to just come up and give us a lump sum of money. It's not going to work like that, Kieran. We got to go searching for it. And I think originally, when the Dave Cameron administration brought in the professional setup, that's why you had 2 companies. You had a development company, which was responsible for the marketing and in terms of being able to raise sponsorship that would be able to help the franchise system and the commercial aspect. That went through the window. And so what you find happening now is that all of the burden is now placed on Cricket West Indies rather than the territories themselves. We don't have the kind of money that Barbados have. Barbados have an organized lottery system that can help you to run the cricket. In the Leewards, what do we have? If we don't get a commercial arm in the Leeward Islands, how are we going to get sponsorship? We have to find a way to get a commercial arm that can help Leewards and Windwards cricket. Without that, Kieran, we're going to be almost mere beggars waiting on Cricket West Indies to give us some funds to be able to run our cricket. In 2026, we can't continue with that model.
Springs, now that, for me, that's been a sort of a handful or a mouthful. I don't know if there's any other topics you want to touch on. Feel free to do so.
Just quickly, Kieran, just wanted to touch that. This is why I was talking about the seriousness of the women's game. The Leeward Islands Stormers are going to be participating in the West Indies Women's Championship in St. Vincent and the Grenadines starting on January 10th. But there was no tournament, Kieran, and there's no camp. So how was the Leeward Island women team selected? This is what I'm talking about. If we're serious about trying to help the women's game, Kieran, look around the territory. I saw a tournament that was held in Guyana the other day. Played between I think 4 provinces and a guest team of 3-1. And again, it begs me to wonder if we're serious about the women's game, excuse me, and we are teaching the women the game. Jamaica and Barbados participated in the Bolivian games. And so they maybe have got a startup where they may be ahead of everybody. but Leewards are going to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and they're just going straight into the tournament. We got to do a lot more. We got to do a lot better than that, Kyron. Somewhere along the line. I also see that Barbados and Guyana signed some memorandum of understanding for just concluded 13 and under tournament in which Barbados won the tournament. It was a 40 over tournament. I think 40 overs, Kyron, for those.
It's a bit more.
Yeah, I think it was a whole lot, and I hope that the organizers will seriously kind of look at that. At the under 13 level, Kyron, it's a development process, allowing the boys and girls to be able to get an opportunity to understand the game. They play a lot of cricket in the afternoon, so imagine having those young players starting at 9 in the morning. I'm saying, Kyron, 25 overs, give them enough time that they can grow. Yeah. When I saw 40 overs, Kyron, it was like, wow, I wonder who came up with that concept. It's like, if big men struggle, Kyron, just imagine, boys who are 9, 10, 11 years old. So I think that I hope the Barbados and the Guyana folks who are listening to revisit that spectrum. You can't force them. It's just like when you're looking, Kyron, at primary school football. They put the small side that goes for primary school football, Kyron, is played on a half side of the football pitch. Right? It's not the full pitch that they put them on, because remember, they're growing. Right? So we all want cricket, but let's do it the right way. Let's bring through the guys in a proper way. Finally, Kyron, umpiring. I can't have this conversation without talking about umpiring. How many first-class umpires we have in St. Kitts and Nevis? Antigua and Barbuda, they're producing a range of umpires. A whole list. Is almost like a factory coming out of umpires. But that is not happening in the rest of the territories. And while Antigua and Barbuda is producing a cadre of umpires, we have some umpires who are stalled, because you have somebody like a Carl Tuckett, who, is he ever going to be an international umpire? When he started before a number of folks who have gone ahead of him. And I keep batting for Carl Tuckett, because I think it's unfortunate, Kyron, because when Carl got involved in umpiring, it was a time when Cricket West Indies was saying that they want more former players getting involved with the game. So you had the Dayton Butler, you had the Carl Tuckett, and those guys came through. But they almost like they got to a situation where they just wasn't given that push to be able to go to the next level. So I really want to see us really across the Leeward Islands, both male and female umpires, go on a serious campaign, because if we don't have proper umpires, Kyron, we can't have proper cricket. And I think it is unfair when you have people like Luther Kelly. Still, I'm not saying that Luther is not supposed to be an umpire, but you've got to be thinking about bringing through a new cadre of umpires, be it in Montserrat, be it in St. Kitts and Nevis, be it in St. Martin. Got to be able to find avenues. And when we bring through the young umpires, we have to pay them properly. You can't pay people $150 EC to go and stand up in the hot sun. Come on. Not in 2025. We've got to do a lot better than that. We seriously have to do a lot better than that, Kyron. And I just want to thank you and your colleague for giving me this opportunity, Kyron, to share my insights. This year has been a resounding year for me. And the cricket needs a revolution. The cricket needs a movement. And I want folks to just listen to our conversation. We can't continue. It should not be business as usual, the way how we're running the cricket in the West Indies. We have heard the cries from Chris Derrin, who says that, boy, Cricket West Indies have to, as they would say in old time days, you have to bend over, roll up, bite your tongue, cut all your corners them, and try and be able to, the little finance so you have, if you have $5, You have to be able to stretch that $5 down past 2026, past 2027. I'm saying the time has come where we got to get innovative, we got to get creative, and we need all hands on deck. I don't have to like you, Kieran, but if we are passionate and we are serious about cricket, which would have helped us at some point in time in our life or sport, then we need to be able to make sure that we could use all of our resources and our energies to be able to make sure that we can dream for the girls and boys in the West Indies and to provide a future for them, because the future is so big. I mean, look at the IPL, Kieran. We're down now to 8 players. We're down to 8 players when at point in time, who is the newest player that we have going to the IPL? We have to start dreaming for our young boys and girls. We have to be able to make sure that we put systems in place. And I always say, Cricket West Indies is the only cricketing nation that is building from on top down. Let us reverse that and start from 2026, building from the base. If you have a solid foundation, everything else will fall in place. Merry Christmas, guys. Happy New Year to you guys. Thanks for the opportunity, and to all the fans who share their critics and their comments and their call. Look forward, Kieran, with God's grace in 2026 to be able to continue to make a contribution to this noble game called cricket.
Thank you very much indeed. Cheers, Vernon.